And let's go into problem set. Okay, so we this is the problem set. Yeah, and there's a lot of pictures to take. We did a lot of stuff this morning. Remember what we did this morning? We had this model with the so instead of having output as being exogenous, we made output dependent on the capital stock. And we had this example where we had a one-time reduction of the capital stock. So I mean, we shouldn't make jokes about that, but suppose that there's all these machines, and then there's a giant rock dropping on all those machines. Fortunately, nobody's hurt, but a lot of machines are just out of business. And then this model shows you what happens. Now, the stories I'm telling you here are sometimes fancy, sometimes cute, and sometimes maybe not even funny. But think about kind of a natural disaster, for example, or the Japanese tsunami in 2011, or an earthquake, or something that destroys the capital stock. Also think about German unification. I mean, German unification didn't destroy the capital stock, but all of a sudden Germany found itself in a situation where the capital stock was just on a per capita basis much lower than it used to be when the Federal Republic of Germany was doing its own thing. And what I've shown you this morning in the course, without deriving it, was that actually this is the evolution of consumption. So this is the evolution of output. Output goes down because you have less capital to work with. Now investment goes up in that period because you want to go back to the optimal capital stock. So output recovers. In the third period, we are back in the second period, because in the first period the shock hits. In the second period, we're already back at old GDP. Consumption drops a little bit, right? And it stays there forever because we assume beta 1 plus r equals 1. Now, this massive discrepancy between what we have in terms of income and what we consume and invest is reflected by the current account deficit. And of course, the current account deficit in period 1 generates a decrease in the net international investment position. So this is a very, stylized model, but it tells us something about, and I made a big historical sermon about, German unification. This is how you can interpret what happened in Germany in the 90s. Why did Germany in the 90s run current account deficits? Well, because they had all these large investments, and that was reflected by the capital, by the negative current account. And the request is that I ask you to formally derive the time path of the endogenous variables for the example presented on lecture slides 364 to 65. So that's what I've just been talking about, 364 to 65. Proceed as follows, and here's a step-by-step instruction. Compute the optimal capital stock, output, and investment in the steady state. That is in the periods before the shock takes place. Actually, we did that this morning already, so you can actually recover some of this. Then compute the capital stock, output, and investment in the shock period. Compute optimal consumption in the shock and its subsequent periods using the intertemporal budget constraint and the assumption that beta 1 plus r equals 1. Now, if you remember what Joe did on the whiteboard yesterday, it's very similar, right? You just have the left-hand side where you have the present value of consumption. On the right-hand side, you have the present value of output minus investment. This is new because we didn't have investment yesterday. And the first thing is to just compute being aware that beta 1 plus r equals 1, you just move out consumption and you can use this formula that we used yesterday, and you'll be fine. And computing the time path of investment of output is a bit more difficult, but not super difficult. Compute the current account in the shock and subsequent periods as difference between savings and investment, with savings defined as G and I gross national income minus consumption. Plot the resulting time series in Excel using the numerical values suggested in class. Well, I don't know whether I did that, right? Let me show you. This is the thing, right? And this is in fact what I've shown you this morning. It's right. You define the parameters, and then of course you refer to these parameters. But that's something that I can show you the Excel spreadsheet. I think the paper and pencil part is more important. And then part 3 is, can you come up with any real-world historical episodes being appropriately described by this simple example? Now, funnily, I've given you examples. So basically, maybe you have other examples where some things like this happened and where you had this destruction of the capital stock and then a recovery. But I think it's super instructive to go through these steps and to check how far you get. And now the approach is I'll be here and you'll have kind of an hour and 15 minutes. If you don't need that much, we don't have to use them. And you try to get as far as possible. And as yesterday, I really encourage you to interact, right? Someone should be able to come to the whiteboard and present the solution. But this is not an exam, right? It's not that I'm taking notes and I'm giving you grades, and you are learning. I mean, the stuff that you're applying now, that's what you learned this morning. So it would be foolish to. Okay, so and I'll be here, and I'll if you have any question, for example, this is what I'm doing. Am I going in the right direction? Feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer. Okay, so need a bit of whiteboard space, so I'll clear that. And I'll switch off the microphone because I've very little to say in the next hour, but I'll switch it on again when. You still need that?